You are listening to the Cattle Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim, your quiet and retiring host. And with me, as always, is my partner,
Rocco. You're retiring?
I'm retiring. You only wish
when?
I was retiring. I wish I was retiring. You don't give me enough money to retire. He keeps all the cash for himself, folks. All right, and you know why? Because I don't have enough money to retire. That means I have to torture Rocco with the engineering joke of the week. You ready for this one, Rocco?
I'm ready.
All right. What type of music do structural engineers listen to?
I don't know. What type of music?
Heavy metal, of course. Huh? Oh, that's just awful. All right. I think I've inflicted enough pain on everybody. All right, folks. So we actually have a first-time guest on the show today. And, hopefully, Rocco doesn't scare him so much that it's his last time. But Harlan Brumm, who is the Director of Product Management, Revit Core Capabilities, and Collaboration Services for Autodesk is here with us today. So, Harlan, we very much appreciate you being on the show, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I got to tell you what, man, what is with that title? You got to talk to the marketing people over there. That's got to be the longest single job title I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, I tend to shorten it. Just I'm a product manager for Revit.
Logic. That makes perfect sense. There you go. He's a product manager for Revit, folks. That's what you need to know. Oh, my goodness. But so, yeah, Harlan is here today to talk to us about Revit 2026 and all the cool new tools that it has. And the overall, I guess, focus that Autodesk has taken with, this rollout of Revit. So before we get into that, though, let's start by getting a little bit of background on Harlan himself. So, Harlan, what do you think folks should know about your background and what you actually do over at Autodesk?
Yeah. So originally, I am an architect by trade, never licensed, but that's what I went to school for. And also, I worked for civil engineering companies back in the Midwest. So originally, I'm from Wisconsin, and Autodesk transplanted me out to New Hampshire about 18 years ago, and I've been with the company ever since. About half that time I actually spent in our support organization, answering questions and helping people solve problems. And about 10 years ago, I moved over to the product side, working on basically Revit architecture. And then the last couple of years, I've been focusing on my crazy job title around core capabilities. And really what that means is I focus on things like Revit Cloud Work Sharing, our APIs, and things that in the product are used by everybody, every discipline, no matter if you're an architect or an engineer or a general contractor. So things that are kind of shared capabilities across the tool, which is why the title's kind of nuts. And I tend to say I cover a lot of different things all the time, and I love just talking to people about what we're working on and doing and hearing what they want us to do. So, yeah.
It's a good setup. I was going to say, I got to appreciate a guy who's got an architectural and civil background, man after my own heart. That's where I come from too. So, all right. So I tell you what, when it comes to, new releases, right, they're always about the tools first. That's where we always jump right away, right? Everybody wants to know what cool features they're getting and how to best implement them. And for our Revit clients here at Zentech, right, they always want to know, right, what are the better, faster ways that they have to model and, to update those models, right? So I guess that's where we're going to start today. So, Harlan, what are some of the best new tools and features in Revit 2026 that you're most excited about?
There's really two things that I would highlight in particular. One of them is brand new, and one of them's been more of an incremental thing that we've been working on for a number of years. And in general, that's what I would tell you. Like, a lot of what you're seeing in Revit 2026 are continuation of things that have been building over multiple releases over time. We don't really have these massive big annual releases anymore. And instead, we have these point releases that come out mid-year. We just released actually 26.1 that has more things in it as well. And so we're constantly evolving the product. And so the first one that I'll talk about is this evolution one, which is called the coordination models. And actually this came out a number of years ago, which was the ability back then to just link in data that was like a Navisworks file into a Revit, an NWC or an NWD file. And then a couple of years after that, we added the ability to link in any viewable format from the Autodesk Construction Cloud, or that's viewable in the large model viewer that we call it. So any of the formats that are viewable on Autodesk Docs now can be linked directly into Revit. And then in 2026, we've added more visibility controls to that and really made it possible. Now, why I highlight this one as sort of this big kind of idea actually in general is that it enables new types of workflows that just weren't possible before. In particular, actually, it enables some backwards compatibility, which, as you guys probably know, Revit, we don't allow you to open a file from a newer version. This capability allows you to actually do that. You can link in a Revit project that's viewable in the cloud from a newer version of Revit into an old version of Revit.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know you guys did that. I learned something.
Yeah, this is one of those unknown kind of things that, because we've been working on it for a while, kind of goes under noticed as like, wow, I didn't know, most people don't know that was possible to do. And it opens up all these, new ways of working as well. So it allows you to actually compare version changes directly within Revit. So, if you got version 1 of the model that you had linked in and then version 2 comes out with someone, you can actually compare those visually within the product and see like what's changed, what's added, what's removed, stuff that previously was only available in a cloud viewer or with a dedicated design review app. Now you can actually do that directly inside of Revit. Giving you a lot better capabilities around like how do you coordinate these things, how do you model your design based on someone else's work. So that's one that just has been a big highlight and something that I think fundamentally more people should really take advantage of. Because the other big aspect of it is performance. You guys probably hear about this all the time as well, or hear this complaint about Revit. And the coordination models, what's amazing about it is that it's a super lightweight way to visualize the data. So instead of having this whole big model loaded into Revit, you get this lightweight viewable representation. That means you can navigate really fast. You can bring in massive models. So if you need to bring in, an entire city model into Revit, you can do that with a coordination model and have this great lightweight representation.
Nice.
Yeah. And then the second one is kind of related about performance, and definitely is all about that. And this is the brand new thing that actually is a tech preview in Revit 2026. And we wanted to get this out and really have people start using it and get feedback because it's a big change under the hood for Revit. And it's our accelerated graphics tech preview, which basically is a completely new graphics engine for Revit. And this tech preview allows you to turn it on in 3D views or 2D views and really experience this new engine. What's really big about it is that it's using OpenUSD. You may have heard of that. It's a Pixar technology for visualizing, movies and stuff that we've actually incorporated into Revit to draw what you're seeing on the screen. And the big deal for most Revit users is that it'll take advantage of your GPU. And as you guys probably know, like Revit historically hasn't been a very GPU utilizing application. We've been CPU heavy, and this is a pretty big difference. And so if you've got a powerful GPU, if you've been doing VR and you've been doing other things on your desktop, now Revit will take advantage of that. And we are looking at it from the point of view of making sure that you get your money's worth as you go forward, but not also impacting people who might not have a dedicated GPU. You can still use this technology as well. So I think this is going to be really exciting. It's going to continue to evolve over the next while as we keep going, and you're going to keep seeing enhancements. 26.1 also just had some improvements, around 10 to 15% improvements on memory utilization and speed as well. And we're really excited to see how that progresses over time.
Yeah. And you know what? I think you're absolutely on the right spot here, Harlan. It's not always the flashiest, most amazing thing when you're talking about performance and speed up, but on the day-to-day workflow, right? Better refresh rates, smoother transitions, being able to actually, load more faster. That has so much more of an impact on the day-to-day than, the flashy new tool that, you built from the ground up. Not that those aren't fun, but it's the implementation stuff like that that really matters, I think, to people. So.
Yeah, I constantly hear from folks, that, if you save me a couple of minutes here and there, that actually pays off huge on an entire project. And those are a lot of the things that we're trying to do day to day. We have lots of those types of enhancements in 26 as well. So.
Cool. All right, so I tell you what, it's kind of impossible these days to talk about software or on just about any level without kind of getting into the AI discussion. And from what I've been reading and seen online for the Revit 2026 release, it isn't really any different, right? Autodesk seems to be putting overall just a lot of effort into AI integrations and development, across all of their products. Harlan, how is Revit integrating AI technologies, and what kind of impact do you think it's going to have on designers and engineers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, like you said, it's such a huge hot topic in software in general, and how can machine learning and artificial intelligence really improve the workflows that people have day to day. And from my point of view, we're trying to really focus our AI efforts on things that will improve productivity mainly. And the quote I like to say is that we're going to try to do the dishes and laundry, not the creative stuff. So
hey, using it the way it's meant to be used, you mean?
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of things out there about, oh yeah, we could totally, do all this visualization and create these pretty pictures and, the kind of art side of things. But I think on our side of things, we really want to keep it to the nuts and bolts activities, and really improving the use so that you can have someone kind of sitting on your shoulder, helping overall. So looking at things like, how do we just help people learn what they need to be able to do on the product easier? How do we give people guidance on, there might be 50 ways to do something in the application for like visibility and graphics. How do you know the right one? And also automating tons of, tedious workflows like documentation. One of the things we've been working on is what we call kind of foundational automations for documentation workflows so that they can be strung together in a much more efficient way and enable those AI capabilities to really come to fruition. So, yeah, it's a huge hot topic for us. You're going to see us, lean more heavily into this as well. Natural language, we think, is going to be a big deal. Today, historically, having to do picks and clicks everywhere, know where buttons are located, know all the capabilities of the product, it can take people years to learn. And we really think that the ability to interact in a natural way, being able to ask the system for support and help and be able to actually have it do things in the application are going to be huge.
Yeah. I like the idea, the native language, right? The concept of someday just being able to sit here with a headset on and say, hey, give me a 12-inch I-beam. And then I just go click and click to drop the endpoints. Simple stuff like that can go an incredible distance.
Yeah, and it can really help, I think, personalize the product as well. Like the ability to not have to show, everything all at once that the products can do, but actually, like you said, like you can be able to talk to it. These technologies are super interesting, I think, for all the AEC workflows.
Yeah, yep, I think it's brilliant stuff. So, Rocco, let's wake you up over there. You're napping. So how important rather are AI and machine learning tools to our Revit users, right? I mean, are people actively looking for those features, or are they just kind of waiting to see where the industry lands on this front?
It's interesting because we talk with customers that are all over the spectrum in terms of use of Revit. We train people right from the beginner through to the advanced levels. And there's still so many people out there that are using AutoCAD and making the conversion over to Revit. And we help out with templates and standards and families and all that good stuff. I don't feel like as beginner users that they're getting into AI, but there's again there's such a wide spectrum of users out there that I think the intermediate and advanced level folks are definitely looking and eager to deploy this kind of functionality, because we get asked for it about AI in a lot of our software consultation discussions.
Yeah. And I think that's actually kind of a little bit of a misnomer, because I think, like Harlan was saying, right, a lot of the AI and machine learning and native language stuff as we move forward is going to make that learning curve for those beginning users, those transitioning people, it's going to be a huge tool for them, I think, to make their lives a lot easier. So, well, anybody out there who's doing that transition, stop and think about that. AI may be very important for your new users to get them up and rolling. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit here. So, one aspect of the design build world, right, that we spend a lot of time, working on with clients here at Zentech is just general data control. And all the poor people listening have heard me spout a million times, about how the construction world, it is the most data heavy industry on the planet. Right? But we do a terrible job of controlling and accessing all of that data. And I think this has been a real issue in the past with BIM in general, right? And in particular, how the data seems to just bottleneck and sadly very often dead end in the design phase. Harlan, how has Revit 2026 kind of improved managing data across, like a full project lifecycle?
Yeah, from my point of view, like you mentioned, data management, data control, the ability to actually leverage data. I mean, one of the big statistics that's out there is, most of the data on our projects never gets used again, or never even gets looked at. There's just so much of it that how do you actually manage this? How do you understand it is such a critical thing. And on our side, we've been working on really back end technology here to fundamentally change what data looks like for users and how do you interact with it. Historically, all this stuff has been locked into files. They've been, Revit files that require Revit to be open in the file. Even to get access to any piece of data within that file, you need to fire up all of Revit. You need to be able to look at it and say, like, okay, I want a name of a door. Well, I got to fire up the model. I've got to open this thing. I got to spend the time to do that. And we really want to move away from that idea that all this data has to be locked into these big files, and give everybody open, granular access to that data. And this last year, we've been working heavily on what we call the AEC data model. And the idea there is that this is an open data model that's gives you access through right now a GraphQL API, so a full API that lets you extract, and not just extract, but gives you real-time access to the information you want about the model at any point in time. And we just went to global availability this last year around what we call parameter availability. So anytime you've actually saved a model to Autodesk Docs or with Revit Cloud Work Sharing, or you just put it with Desktop Connector, it's going to, and you enable this, it's going to allow you to create an AEC data model of that particular project in time. And then you can use that to create dashboards, use Power BI to slice and dice that data, understand it, get visual representations of what it's going to look like, and really start to use that data downstream as well. So actually, there's also a connection now with the Autodesk Construction Cloud where you can extend that property data from Revit in other use cases. So you can take like a door and you can have someone else add parameters to that door and be able to leverage that then for their workflows downstream in construction, or be able to visualize. So it's a big fundamental shift around, how we historically have had these things locked into files that required these big extraction processes to run, and moving towards this open, granular data where you can access it at any point in time and not need to have these heavy tools all the time to access this stuff.
Yeah. That's absolutely fantastic. I love that. You're talking my language now, Harlan. You can start getting into, extracting data, using it in Power BI and building, dashboards and downstream process. That's what we do here. That's a huge chunk of our work. So I'm really glad to hear that. And I think you're on the right track, right? I think, part of that bottleneck has always been that, when you get out into the field, right? When you're dealing with the construction guys, the contractors, the trade folks, they don't have Revit. They don't want to install Revit. They don't know Revit, So all that data that we took the time to build and our LOD developments just kind of die on the vine. And I think you guys are moving in absolutely the right direction with that, making an open source model. That's fantastic.
Yeah. It's amazing how much, even in the design process, right? Things end with PDFs. Things end with these 2D deliverables, which the industry is not moving away from 2D deliverables, but the ability to actually, reference the real model geometry and the properties of that model in a granular way that doesn't require these applications to be necessarily running all the time, or people to learn everything, right? To have these personalized bespoke experiences built that just might be for a door hardware manufacturer, or might just be for the project admin on the job site to be able to see that dashboard is going to fundamentally sort of change the dynamics, I think, in the AEC industry overall.
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge. I love that. All right, folks, let's take a quick break to hear from today's sponsor. And when we get back, I want to talk a little bit about the future of Revit with Harlan, all right? So stand by, folks. We'll be back in just a moment with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. Hey, everybody, it's Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants, and we wanted to talk to you guys today about Managed CAD Services by Zentech Consultants. Look, every one of us out there in the design space, we're looking for that power person who can handle all of your standards and templates and file structures and answer all your CAD problems. But we run into two big issues. Number one, those folks don't come cheap, especially when you start adding in all of the taxes, insurances, and time off and stuff you got to add in. And then you've got to find someone that you can trust. And that's where Zentech Consultants come in, because I got to figure you guys are listening to us every week talk. You got to trust us. And we come in and handle all your CAD management needs for you with our Managed CAD Services contracts, an annual contract where we can be your CAD manager, doing all the things that you need done for an affordable rate with people whose technology acumen you know and trust. So Rocco, why don't you tell folks where they can find out more about Managed CAD Services and get the ball rolling?
Yep, you can hit up our website, zentechconsultants.net, and if you go under the services section, you'll be able to see the details. You could also give us a call, 866-824-4459, or drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
There you go. All the CAD management help that you need but have not been able to get is available with Managed CAD Services by Zentech Consultants. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. We're talking with Harlan Brumm of Autodesk today about Revit 2026. And in this half of the show, I want to get into the future state discussion, right? Because I think it's important for our listeners to know where Autodesk may be going down the road. And we left off talking about data control in the first half of the podcast. So let's kind of pick up there. Harlan, where do you see Autodesk going with data controls and related processes in the future?
I think the main thing that you're going to see from us is being more open and transparent around where data can be used, and creating more seamless connections between not just our products, but the entire ecosystem within AEC. One of the biggest issues that customers have talked to us about is the need to translate between applications, the need to move between these different workflows, and the kind of static, monolithic applications of the past, that really applications that had to do everything, all of them had to have every piece of functionality in them to do everything, are rapidly changing and kind of going to become extinct, I think, over time. And, users really want to be able to choose the best application to do the jobs that they have. And you're going to see, Autodesk and Revit in particular move in that direction when it comes to data. And not only that, but then it comes with it the whole idea of how do you control the process? Because, AEC is a risk-adverse industry overall. These projects are big and mistakes cost a lot of money. And so how do you protect against that? And, I think Autodesk is going to move into the idea of how do we centrally manage and control permissioning? How do we provide you that experience that permissions, permeate the entire ecosystem so that you can be making changes in the cloud and you can trust that that change will propagate correctly into a tool like Revit or into Forma, and that you can seamlessly move between different analysis engines or tools and take the same design from one application to another and not lose work. That's going to be, I think, the big direction. I mean, this has been a challenge in the industry for 20 years or more, a huge amount of time. And so, I think that is a huge opportunity that we see, and moving in that direction will open up all sorts of new possibilities for people.
Nice. I mean, I think that's a great way to go. I mean, you've got your own internal roadmap almost to follow on that, right? In terms of the Esri partnership, right, between the GIS and the civil side. That for years were competitors, and every data was siloed, and it was always a struggle. And they were fighting each other for customers. And when Autodesk and Esri sat down and worked together and started having this functional partnership, sales soared for both companies in that space. I think it's the right way to go, and you guys have already kind of started pioneering that in what you're doing on the civil space. So I'd love to see that moving forward with Revit. That'd be outstanding.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Nice. Okay. All right. So look, Revit has come quite a long way since it first dropped, right? And Autodesk has done quite a lot of work in recent years to address, industry complaints and shortcomings, I guess we'll call it, that caught a lot of media attention and frustrated, some users. And I think that shows the dedication that Autodesk has towards continuing to develop Revit as their keystone architectural and engineering design product. So, with that in mind, Harlan, how do you think Revit's evolved, right, to meet kind of the changing needs of AEC? And where do you see it heading over the next few years?
Well, first of all, I would just say, we're never done. And
you would hope not, otherwise you don't have a job.
Yeah, I mean, we have 10,000 ideas that we're constantly looking at and evolving. And so, user feedback is just a critical part of our workflow and how we do. I just, was opening up and having one-on-one chats with customers today, just trying to hear all the different things that people face. And it is a very complex product, and it's intended to serve a lot of different people. And so, I would just say we have our work cut out for us. And I think, generally we try to be up to the challenge there. It might not always, show up right away or show up in the context, but I think we've been making good progress over time, and I think like I said, though, we still have a lot to do, and we know that Revit is used and mission critical for a huge amount of projects in the world, although lots of tools are in that boat as well. So, and fundamentally, we look at it as our place in the ecosystem of trying to help connect people fundamentally. So, yeah, it's a lot of work, and but I'm optimistic we're going to get there for everybody.
Cool. So, Rocco, what's been kind of the user feedback, I guess, from our clients, around Revit over the last couple of years? Has it been more positive than it was in the past?
Yeah, so I'll take you back more than a couple years. So last month, actually, in April was 25 years that I've been in this industry and seen the Autodesk products evolve. And I remember the early days of Mechanical Desktop and Inventor, and those were scary days when it came to the product. Revit was, I think it was in the early 2000s, maybe 2004, 3, 4-ish, when Autodesk acquired Revit, and it was already a solid product, and Autodesk has only taken it um, to a much, much higher level of functionality and capability. Obviously, that's what we're talking about today. Um, but it's, folks are really impressed with Revit, and I never really saw it as an unstable product. It's only evolved, and to see more and more folks using it. And like I said earlier, there's still a lot of people that we're even working to transition from AutoCAD, but there's a huge base of customers that have seen Revit evolve, and it's I'm happy to see all these changes.
Okay. All right. So kind of to throw back a little bit to what Harlan was saying, a big thing I think that Autodesk has done well is to get users involved in the development process, right? With, roadmaps and user groups and feedback forums and so on. Just to hear exactly what end users want, right? Instead of, just relying on senior executives and marketing folks to lay out the path that they think people should want. And I think that's really important. And I think it's made a huge difference in the way that, updates and releases are received by users, because they are all driven by users' needs nowadays. So Harlan, with that in mind, what are the best ways, I guess, for Revit users to, influence the product direction or to get involved in Autodesk's development process?
We have a number of kind of forums and methods that customers can take advantage of to find out what's going on, as well as and you mentioned some of them. We have our public roadmap, which outlines kind of the areas of investment we're looking at, our strategy even. It outlines what we're currently working on and then what we're thinking about next. And users can directly provide feedback on those items. They can actually go in and vote on them. They can, send that feedback. And I read it all, by the way, like every comment that comes in, our product team looks at and we read those. We also have, very, honestly, like in-product ways to provide feedback as well. Actually, we have a survey that some of your users may see pop up occasionally that asks you, how was this piece of functionality? How was Revit overall? And you get the opportunity to give us feedback, and we read those comments as well. And then there's more, like I call it, like hands-on ways to contribute. So we have a preview release. That's our beta program, basically, which is an open program for anyone can go sign up for it. All you have to do is go to beta.autodesk.com. There's an open opportunity listed for the Revit preview, and you can sign up for it. And in that preview, you actually can use builds of the next version of Revit that we're working on, the new capabilities and features that we're building, and directly provide us feedback on how those are working, how they may impact your workflow, test them for quality, hey, you find an issue, and engage directly with our product team during those conversations. And then the last thing I'll mention, and it's really relevant because we're kicking these off again, is we have Inside the Factory events. And these are in-person events that we hold in our offices. So we're holding one in October in Boston and in Krakow, Poland. And it's a full week with our development team providing feedback about what our release is going to be. And those things provide us a huge amount of insightful information. And it goes way beyond, just commenting or saying something online, and you actually get to say it face to face with me and our team. And we take that feedback super seriously, right? We want to build this stuff with our customers and with the experts and with people of all walks, whether you're an MEP engineer or an architect or a BIM manager or in construction or whatever your role, an interior designer, a residential architect. Like, we're looking for your engagement, and that's going to help really drive our process. And we fundamentally don't release things actually until our customers tell us that yes, this is in a good place, and that we think that this will be helpful and add value. If our customers don't give us that thumbs up, we'll keep working on it basically until they tell us that, okay, we think this is now good to go, and this will help people. So
So good approach. I like that. All right, folks. So as I always do, whenever we have a guest on, I like to give them the last word, so they can tell us something that I just wasn't smart enough to ask them about. So Harlan, what else should people know about either Revit 2026 or the AEC industry in general that you want to make sure they're thinking about when they leave the show today?
This is a great question, James. Like I was super stumped, honestly, by this a little bit, and thinking through, what this could be. I mean, to me, I think one of the biggest learnings I've had is that, folks who have an optimistic viewpoint around technology in general and are willing to jump in and adopt things, can really change conversations and make a big impact. We see in Revit that, people get hamstrung by their processes sometimes, or they get locked into their current way of thinking, and kind of unwilling to experiment or unwilling to really try something new. And I want to just reiterate that, like, that's such a huge factor in moving things forward. And like I said about feedback, like it's so critical, because if you don't get to try something for 2 years because, of something going on, it's really difficult then to, influence things as they go forward, because technology moves so quickly. The AI stuff we've been talking about, the data work, like these things moves at a pace that, outpaces implementation in a lot of ways. And so, I would tell all the users out there, like, the faster you can get stuff implemented, the faster you can look at it, the better off I think your business is going to be at the end of the day. And as Bree knows, the AC industry is a competitive and tough business to be in a lot of ways. So that's what I would tell you. When it comes to 2026, I think people also underestimate, to a large extent, everything that's in it. Headline things, the few things, and kind of shake their heads and go, there's nothing here. But there's always so much under the hood, in our release notes, in the kind of details of the update that are fundamentally different. And I always like to tell people the latest and greatest is the best. There's no doubt about it. Like, it is the most stable. It has the best fixes in it. It has the best functionality in it. And so staying up to date and current can really make a big difference for folks in their experience of Revit. And we see it. We see people generally, when they're on the latest, they're happier. And when they're stuck on the old stuff, they tend to, like, feel the pain sometimes. And while we do our best to update, older versions and keep those relevant, even just staying on the latest update of those versions, like, I don't think people, generally tend to appreciate that. They tend to think about the pain of, like, I got to update and I've got to do all this, but the benefits in many cases far outweigh that. So,
yeah. I like that approach. The whole concept. Don't let fear stagnate you, right? We'll call it technological positivity.
Yeah,
go with that.
I like that. Optimism.
Optimism
when it comes to this. Like, it's going to help you.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Yeah, it's a great approach. All right. So with that, folks, we are going to get out of here. But I want to thank Harlan one more time for being here to kind of give us a peek at the inner workings of the Revit group. And I hope he didn't think that Rocco was so creepy that, Harlan won't come back on the show again. So, Harlan, thank you. Sincerely appreciate you being here, brother.
Thanks, Harlan.
All right, folks. We're going to let Harlan get back to his busy day making Revit work better for everybody, and we will catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.